Good night, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Caribbean Talks. This online show encourages dialogue and highlights topical issues that are important to us here in the Caribbean. Our 10-part series covers topics such as music, lifestyle, health, fashion, and topical conversations that share the uniqueness and the interest of what it means to live and be in the Caribbean. I am your host once again, Avanel Romeo Williams, and I would like to thank you for joining us for our first 2 episodes where we discussed climate change and living gluten-free in the Caribbean. Today, we will be talking about what COVID-19 has taught us through the lens of persons in the education system. Here at Caribbean Talks, we seek to highlight the interests of the Caribbean people by connecting with the diaspora and the world through conversations. At this time, I would like to acknowledge our sponsors, Caribbean Insights, an online platform that focuses on the Caribbean lifestyle by providing information on current affairs, lifestyle, and political developments across the region. You can visit their website at www.mycaribbeaninsight.com. LRT Media and Business Solutions, empowering businesses and improving people's lives by providing transformative services to clients, primarily in the Global South. And also AD Romeo and Associates Consultancy, fostering sustainable development through innovative services worldwide. I am inviting you to join the live stream, share it with your friends and networks all over the Caribbean region. Follow us on Caribbean Insights Facebook page. Like, share, comment, and get involved. To our viewers, you are encouraged to put your questions and comments in the live, and we will try to address them throughout the show. So, without further delay, I will introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker today is Ms. Prisca Jack, and she has been an educator for 29 years. She holds a bachelor degree in administration from the University of the West Indies and also a master's degree in leadership and administration from Walden University. Prisca has been a principal for 10 years and has dedicated herself to the education of young persons in the Caribbean. She is also an active member in groups such as the Tobago Principals Association and the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Hello, Prisca, and welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it is our pleasure. So we will start off very simple. So what has been your greatest joy in teaching so far?
Wow. I am trying to figure which one comes first.
So many.
So many. But I would say the joy of seeing children achieve. That has always been my mantra. From getting into the teaching service, I remember my father saying to me, teaching is a hell-bait job. And therefore, you have to go there and do your best. And if you know you cannot do, then do not go into teaching. And so I have kept that principle in my head, and I have ensured. I mean, I am elated when I see children move from one step to the next. And then I enjoy most of it now in my life after 29 years of being in the teaching fraternity. I think I enjoy the best of it now because I see children, I go to different places and children walk up to me and say, Miss, come out the line, I will help you. Miss, I will do this. And that's the greatest joy for me. I enjoy it. No financial remuneration can take place of that for me.
Yes. Wow, that's interesting. So has the pandemic in any way put any gray to that joy in teaching?
Yes and no, but more yes than no. Why? Because with the pandemic, it required of us a whole new paradigm. I mean, we were looking at children who were only used to playing games on the tablets. We were looking at children who never enjoyed one of their own or having to manipulate one of their own. And then we were looking at teachers whose ability to own a device was not always there, who was not anchored with the online teaching and all that. So it did bring some, I mean, a lot of it, sometimes quite frustrating, but in the end, overjoyed. I'm happy that we managed it well. From
really
my perspective, is where I am.
Yeah, but it really sounds like you and your team would have conquered the pandemic.
Oh, yes, we have. I must say we have. We have.
Are there any lessons learned that you wish to speak about?
Of course. Lessons many. At the top of the burner, being able to communicate in a way that everybody understands, being able to use a common platform for the benefit of all. Because the platform of online teaching did not only benefit the child, it also benefited us as educators. As a matter of fact, after 29 years in the system, it wasn't in my wildest dream that I would have had to manipulate such a system to ensure that every single child and every single teacher understands and learns from it and benefits from it. And that is what, for me, was my greatest learning opportunity. So my teachers, we took the opportunity as teachers, even if we were in the pandemic and schools were closed, we took the opportunity to take a half day every Friday to go to BEAST. That's our school. And we went to school and we shared. We shared what we know. We shared, as a matter of fact, we had a professional development session with a teacher who is so savvy. And so we did a 2-day professional development, and she took us through everything that we were hearing and what was confusing us. And then we did a each one teach one session. And so we learned, and then we incorporated the parents. So we had several sessions. We had a whole session with the parents, and then we did them class by class. So they understood and they could have followed. Because children, as we know, would be very easy. It would be very easy to them to manipulate, but we wanted parents, to be able to be a part of that, so that the issues of them going on when they're not supposed to go on, downloading what they're not supposed to download then, and keeping it totally school related during the hours of school time was what was paramount for us. And so we ensured that we did sessions with our parents, and they too were a part of it.
I really like that the teachers, came together, learned the software, learned how to function and continue to communicate during the pandemic, and then share this information with the parents who would be in a better position to assist, their children. I really like that.
And parents assisted us, in buying online programs. So we bought some online programs. So the activity oriented. So the children, we use them all along. That's
really interesting. I mean, you would think after 29 years that nothing could surprise you.
Oh, yes.
And then and then in comes COVID, and then it totally overhauled the way or the method of teaching.
Oh, yes.
So have you ever witnessed any other occurrence on a global scale such as this that really had such a significant that really affected us here locally?
Certainly not. This one supersedes any that I would have felt might have been an issue. COVID-19 and this online teaching and online instruction, I mean, it taught us so much. For me, I am overwhelmed at how I thought I couldn't, and then I conquered. And the children are as well. It really did a lot for them and for us. And there was a time when we were able to bring the children out to school, and that worked for us as well, because when they came out, the standard fives, there was a time it's only the standard fives, those who were going into SCA could have come out. And when those children came out, what we did, was that we did some online sessions, even if they were before us. So they were on their devices before us. But when they came out and we look at them, they were like, thank you, Jesus, for saving us, because they missed the face-to-face. They were tired of the online. They said they were tired of the submissions, and they wanted to see our ink on the papers. And they and so those children came out. Unfortunately for them, there wasn't a teething period, so they had to go straight into it because the exam was fast approaching.
Yes.
We managed, and they managed, and thank God they did well. They did very well.
So, to further that point, face-to-face versus virtual. I mean, is one better than one? Is there a place for each? How do we maneuver? What's your opinion on these two modes of teaching?
There is a place for each, but as an educator, and I call myself a senior educator, face-to-face has the greater outcome for us. I can walk around a child. As a matter of fact, when we instruct, we walk around to every child to ensure that we can grasp at which point they may be stumbling. And so we walk around and we check. So by the time that child completes the exercise, we know almost that they would have done it right because we would have assisted them as they go along. Online, I must admit, we had the challenges of parents being so frustrated and so taken up within their own worlds and surviving within their own spaces that the children themselves did not do the work all the time. So when we felt that a child was good because the child was getting everything right, when the child came before us face to face, oh boy, did we take a beating there. We did take a beating. But as I said, we conquered, we worked around it, we recognized where the issues were, and we worked tirelessly every day till 6 p.m. with these children to ensure that they got it.
Wow, well, congratulations on achieving.
Thank you.
But that issue that you just mentioned, that parents were assisting their children a bit too much, so much so that you weren't able to gauge, their progress. Do you think technology can solve that as opposed to face-to-face? I mean, clearly face-to-face did, but do you think any technology, maybe new technology, maybe something else to be invented could prevent that?
Technology can solve it if well managed. Technology can solve it with educating parents in a particular way. Technology can solve it with the child being able to produce both as technology and the face-to-face. They must work hand in hand. So even if I give you an exercise online, then you have to submit something to me in writing, right? And so, I mean, the truth is, I could understand then, could have understood then, and I understand now the frustration of the parents. They had to go out to work, they had to find ways of getting the children supervised. When they came home, they were too tired. The children would have fallen asleep, and they said, look, miss, I just had to do it for him. We have had experiences of children saying, miss, I didn't write it on my paper, his mommy write it. And that isn't, and I'm glad you smiled, because I was tempted to smile when the child said it. And then I thought, so many factors could have allowed this to happen. And when you speak to parents, you understood why, it was. But continued collaboration, continued talking to parents about the child's overall interest and where it will take the child if the child does it for his or herself, that worked, and we conquered. But we really did understand the situation.
Okay. Coming out of the pandemic, do you think that training programs for teachers should include a technological aspect? Because we really had to learn Zoom and learn the other different softwares to, teach the students. Do you think that we should include, on a policy level, teaching technologies, you know, from or distance learning in terms of, you know, over VoIP as it, you know, over the computer, not face to face, not physically in the same room?
Yes, I do, because I must admit that this is the beginning of a new era. I do not think that we are ever going to be at a point where technology would mean almost nothing to teachers or children. And therefore, there should be some policies which are mandatory to ensure that teachers, educators are in line with what technology demands as far as teaching and learning is concerned. And so I think just as teachers come into the new system, that should be part of their training as they come in. For those who are coming in, there should be an aspect of it that manages that. And those of us who are there and had to learn it by force, as I would say, there should be systems in place to ease us of the anxiety of fighting to learn something in a given time or else. I think
so I will make our Facebook question our last question for you tonight. And the question is, how do you feel about continuing a face-to-face and online hybrid as being part of the norm in Trinidad and Tobago? How do you feel about that as an educator? What's your opinion? You have many feelings? Okay.
About that. But I think there should be some aspect of it. What I think, though, is that it should be done in sectors of your learning community. So the young ones who are very tactile, who and they're also very good with technology, there should be a system so that there should be a particular range in which they operate. And then as they move to the middle group, as we call them, infants, juniors, and seniors, we see the juniors doing a little bit more and the opportunity to interact more. And then as they get to the senior level, because we have to look at this at a mindset where in the end, until it is changed, the children do a written face-to-face exam. And we must look at it in that perspective. Our system now requires our children to do a face-to-face written exam, and therefore,
the assessment,
as they get to the senior level, except the policies change nationally as far as that is concerned, then we have to focus on what the exam requires. So even if teaching and learning can be hybrid, what we have to focus on is the fact that they do not do an online exam. They have to do a written one. And therefore it has to be in line with what our system requires. And I am not saying that because I want you to believe that I feel that as they reach a senior level, at standard 4 and 5, that they should throw away the online. But it's what we have to focus on in order for them to excel
to pass the assessments, basically, absolutely.
Therefore, I strongly believe that it should be done in various levels as they go along, but as far as when they reach that point of the SEA exams, and that's the senior level, standards 4 and 5, there should be some great focus on what the exam requires, and therefore they have to be able to sit before you and do a written exam and be comfortable with it in the end.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Jack. That was really, really informative. I mean, the impact that COVID has had on us, I mean, so many different industries, on so many different levels, basically, you know. So thank you so much for your opinions and information shared tonight.
Thank you. Yes. My pleasure.
Yes. Bye-bye. Well, you have a good night. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So we would now move on to our second speaker. For those of you now joining us, you are tuned in to Caribbean Talks, a Caribbean-based online show that highlights the topical issues we face within the region. Join the live, like, share, comments. Our second speaker is Mr. Kendell Vincent. He is a youth development and communications professional from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. He is very passionate about the holistic development of children and youth in society. Kendell is currently pursuing a BA in communications at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, and has over 15 years of experience in servant leadership across the non-profit sector at various levels. Kendell is a culture lover and fuses his experiences with the arts towards conceptualizing innovative strategies to engage children and youth, having witnessed firsthand the tremendous impact the arts can have in the transformation of young lives. With his vast experience, Kendell currently serves as the chairperson of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. Good afternoon, Kendell, and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yes, good. Yes. And thank you so much for joining us. I can see you are still at your tertiary education physically.
Definitely.
Yes. So we'll start off simple. Why did you decide to be an activist?
Okay, so why did I decide to be an activist? I think service has always been a part of me from school, getting involved in the Trinidad Tobago Cadet Force, which would have also led to, me serving as house captain. And, I'm just always someone that, I think service is something that sort of found me because I always put myself, or I always, I'm not one to look at a problem or look at a situation and just, sit there and let it pass. So like when I'm in school as a class rep or whatever, I always tend to, sometimes when I shy away or I kind of take a back seat, I always tend to be nominated for or placed in these positions of service.
It's your energy.
So, that really, I think activism is something that has found me, something that I think I'm passionate about, just making a difference in whatever way I can to ensure that we have a better society.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important, and even more so coming from young persons, because there's a saying that says that when the old people create the world, they would not live in it. But when the young people do, then you would live in it. You are creating the world you would like to live in. So continue. So tell us about your activism work. What projects are you currently on?
Currently,
Just one?
Currently, the major project that I'm working on is our 7th Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit, where we bring together young persons from across the Caribbean. And I'm very happy to see that actually it's coming up from the 12th to the 15th, right in our beautiful sister island of Tobago.
Oh, yeah.
Happy, for the work that I've been doing, both in collaboration with the different regional youth councils, the Tobago Youth Council, and of course the Tobago House of Assembly and the respective stakeholders. So that is something that definitely that it's a major project. It's something that has been occupying majority of my activism time and space as well, and it is really the work not of me but of a community of young persons and youth activists from across the Caribbean, and very much young persons from Tobago who has contributed and continue to contribute. It wouldn't just be my project, but it's a project that we all working for together.
Okay, so did you guys have this in when the pandemic was happening, or was it postponed, or did you do a virtual seminar? How did you all?
Unfortunately, during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think this is one of the areas with large gathering and bringing, because we talk about close to like 200 persons or more.
Yes.
So during the pandemic, we found other innovative ways and strategies to communicate and have virtual panels and stuff. However, we are now, this has been one of the projects or initiatives that would have suffered more so based on the pandemic.
Yeah.
Actually, I would have been elected to the portfolio of communications right at the last summit, which would have been held in Trinidad in 2020. The start of 2020, and then COVID came a few weeks later. So then that 2 years, it really offered a way. I think COVID offered an opportunity for different stakeholders to really sort of pivot and dig deep into creative juices to continue to
Yeah.
find ways to, so while it was, we had a lot of loss associated with COVID, but it also
Mm-hmm.
allowed us the opportunity as well to slow down. And, some of us were just going busy, 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 from
Yeah.
one thing to the
Yeah.
other. And then COVID kind of ripped our schedules apart and,
Mm-hmm.
allowed us, to the time to reflect and, introspect and, course correct where possible.
Absolutely.
So I think there definitely was some, well, obviously my schedule could not totally kind of shift or stop because school
Yes.
was definitely still part of UE, kind of gave us a little 2, 3 weeks and then we quickly pivot on to online. So yeah.
So would you say that the pandemic has made activism harder? Because you did say that you had to get more creative. Can I also say harder, or it was more
Challenging, somewhat. I think, it's really, you see, technology is a part of, we kind of get away from the technology. And I like to
Mhm.
see sometimes as young persons, you know, a few years ago, being a YouTube influencer would not have been something at, a career trajectory for any person. But we see that technology is something that we have to get with the time. So COVID kind of speed up that. Um,
Yeah, a
yeah,
big way.
so
Yeah.
was your just repeat your question a little bit to the end part?
I was just asking if if
If it
the
made it sort of,
pandemic made, yeah, activism harder,
yes,
or the
definitely.
creative bit was really, a pull.
But creativity has not been, and I don't say this to blow my own horn or whatever. Creativity has not never been something of a challenge to me.
Uh,
But in terms of challenge, I would say we talk about access. In terms of I think that has been the challenging part of this whole thing. We're only
mhm.
able to meet, and even for people who in the education sphere or whatever sphere, you can only reach places who have access. And I talk about access because there are a lot of young persons, and I think even today there are lots of young persons in rural communities while they may have gotten the device or they have access to the device, internet connectivity is not as strong. So I think that was a challenge there. And how could we reach young persons? Because who are unable to, how can we ensure that everyone has equal access to the information, to the and I think mental health, that also, sometimes before COVID, we'd have looked at mental health and be like, I know mad, I know, this, whatever, but it really had some, situations. I think that has been difficult because it also for persons who are in the development space as well. Um, you always one there was a challenge of ability to reach persons and the whole access issues. And then there was also another part of it or another aspect of it where mental health became, I think it was more kind of pushed to the front when individuals had, when it kind of hit home. So
Yeah, more and
persons
more persons were
also
coming down
starting
with,
to
yeah.
they realize that sometimes even in organizations and groups and persons in the development space, you find that a lot of your team members, were impacted, they were mentally in different ways. So a lot of the work will eyed on you, and then when it became overwhelming, you yourself took a mental hit, and you had to find ways. So I think definitely the determination or the commitment to continue to show up, that has been, I think that also has been a bit of a challenge as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
So clearly, COVID-19 brought about a whole set of social negatives. Can you think of anything positive coming out in your work that
Positive
you
in
have
a lot.
experienced, yeah, from the COVID, with activism, with school? Anything positive coming out of that?
But definitely it has brought some positives. I think one of the things is that for NGOs and non-profits, just generally business in the development phase, we've shied away from the technology and applying the use of technology and marketing for quite some time. And I think COVID has really forced us. So I'm happy to see persons of different ages and in different spaces now utilizing the technology so really strengthen their level of operations and in terms of allow for wider reach. So I think that was definitely some of it allows us to reach places. You can be sitting here at your home. You don't have to run through the to get to a studio to cover, to do this. But that you're sitting
Yeah.
probably in the comfort of your home, and it allows you to connect persons. I see I see Lyle from Antigua. I see other persons. So it allows us even as a Caribbean family or community to connect to persons across the world. And I think that has been really the positive, where you can sit in the comfort of your homes and look at one of the key things in COVID, and I think at the university level, we've been able to, whenever there's like a lot of intimate weather that has been, we tend to pivot quickly to online. So I think kind of brought us ease of access, opportunities to expand our reach. Those are some of the pros and benefits, of COVID-19.
So right now you're focusing on a lot of youth work. Is there any kind of change that you would like to see in society now? Just one, if you could, in your opinion, just one change you would like to see happen now?
In terms of changes, I think by and large, when we look at society, we look at the news, and look at everything that is happening in society, we tend to, as young people, feel demotivated. And in terms of getting involved, one of the things that I think could change is that I would not want to get into politics per se, but I would go more general. Maybe we can apply it. We tend to sometimes, older persons give young persons the opportunity to put themselves forward in leadership positions. And when they're given
more youth leaders.
Yeah, when young persons are given the opportunity to be placed in situations of governance or leadership, we tend to want to, manipulate or kind of control them, not give them the opportunity to really step out, and shine. And I feel like one of the things that I think can really, really change is that when we put young people or we put persons in positions, not just young persons, but women, persons of the disabled community, when we put persons, when we say that we want to give them that opportunity, yes, allow them the opportunity. Yes, they would make mistakes. Yes, they would go through that sharp learning curve. But one of the things that I would really like to change is that we allow persons, women, young persons, disabled persons, but we give them the opportunity, not just put them there as, to tick a box or to say, yes, we get this one there, but we really give them the opportunity to show up, and show out and really do, yes, they would make mistakes, but I think one of the things that I'm really pressing for is for our leaders to give more young persons spaces in terms of which they can thrive, as well as we give them the seat at the table, allow them to really effectively contribute and do what they put there to do, contribute their ideas, and yeah.
It sounds as if you are on your way to making that happen on a personal note. That's what it sounds like to me.
Go ahead. Well, I did say, essentially, I feel like definitely we're still in the process of, deciding where life takes me, but I definitely want to be in a position or situation in terms of where I can offer impact. Or create, that level of change. It does not have to be politics. Actually, that is furthest from my mind in light of everything that's happening in terms of politics. But I think wherever I'm very much committed to contributing in whichever sphere or communication is one such field that offers you the will is your stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would end with a Facebook question, and someone is asking if you think, in your opinion, do you think COVID has given youth more opportunities to be heard?
In terms of opportunities to be heard, COVID-19 definitely has given me the opportunity more opportunity to be heard. But it has also, I think, with the online, I did a lot of, sort of online interviews, online sort of, all these things. But it also, not just the opportunity to be heard, but I think it also allows you the opportunity to sit still, and, sort of reassess. And I use my hat in on that, and I would want this to, just the last question, as you see, is because we want to be heard, but also as well sometimes it's not just a matter of wanting to be heard. It would have given you the opportunity to kind of sit still, and in that moment of sitting still, it allowed me to be a much more better holistic individual in terms of to know myself and to learn and grow. So yeah.
Okay. I know you're a tertiary student. Can you talk briefly about your experience with COVID going to UE? You just reminded me of that. Did you do all your classes online or?
Yeah, definitely.
They were accommodating.
Yeah, definitely. Most of the classes were online for quite some time. I would have experienced or encountered some difficulty, and I would have had in terms of those, in terms of one, the communications is one aspect. But for I was doing some minor courses, or trying to build a minor in culture in the theater arts field. So for directing one and those sort of courses, that for those students would have been doing the creative, those creative course, that would have definitely been. But my experience during COVID, I would have actually also served on the Guild of Students during the COVID as the publications committee chairperson. But I think it gives me the opportunity to, while to go through it really gave me the opportunity to serve students and really just serve myself, serve students, serve myself in a way that it allowed me the opportunity to really apply, being a UB student, it had its challenges. There were moments when you had to do exams and the internet wasn't, I mean, all the things that could have happened.
Happened. Yes. Well, it sounds as if you really
and now coming back in being a unit, yeah. So there was some communication issues that happened along the way that made the experience a bit, anxiety at times. And coming back out from COVID, just very quickly, what we would have recognized is that a lot of attention was not really placed in terms of what, like the whole social distancing and everything. So it becomes like a culture shock. Kind of, we get so accustomed to all the social distancing and the sanitizing and all these things, but things appear to be back to,
yeah, but it
normal.
sounds as if regardless of the situation you were in, you were able to, conquer it and make good about what was happening around you at
Most
any given point in
definitely.
time.
Most
But
definitely.
Kendell, we want to thank you so much for being with us tonight.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for giving us the information on, activism and how COVID would have, impacted it both positively and negatively.
Most
Right?
definitely.
Yes.
Have a
So
good one.
thank you
Thanks for
again.
having
You
me.
have a good, yes, you have a good evening. Great. So now we move on to our third speaker, Mr. Jackson. For those of you now tuning in to Caribbean Talks, this is a Caribbean-based online talk show that emphasizes the topics, the issues we face within the region. So I invite you once again to join the live, like, comment, and share. Mr. Lyle Jackson is an IT HR professional and a youth advocate who works along with nonprofits to transform youth. After working for over a decade in the telecommunications industry, Lyle became involved in youth development. During his time there, Lyle has taken an active role in his place of employment as one of the organizers of the APUA's summer internship program for over 4 consecutive years to help transform the program into an archetype of what corporate internships should look like. The flagship 6-week program has now become a highly sought after accomplishment by many young persons in Antigua and the wider Caribbean. Lyle, welcome to the show. Good night.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
We are great. I hope you are too. So what's the weather like in Antigua? We are experiencing a lot of rain here this afternoon. Is it the same there?
We had some rain last weekend, but the last few days has been quite sunny.
Oh, okay. So, in your opinion, how has COVID affected the public service?
That's a very good question. In my opinion, I think COVID has really thinned out the herd in terms of the capable from incapable. Especially going to a remote setup for a lot of persons, that was quite a challenge. Some persons are very used to, a particular static setup and having to work remotely as well to getting used to a lot of new technology, VPN setups and so on, and trying to dial back into the offices and so on. It was something very new for them and very challenging.
Okay, why did you decide to make the switch into youth development?
Honestly, if you from my standpoint, I always believe you need to be the change you want to see. It's a lot of times persons see something and they tend to have opinions, and they will go on and on about something, but they would not step forward and try to lend a hand and try to actually make a difference. I am more of a hands-on person. If I see that I can actually do something about it, I would step forward and do it. Otherwise I would not say anything at all.
Okay. Is there any specific type of youth development you are focusing on, or is it youth development in general?
It's general. What you're trying to do basically is to create equal opportunities for persons. In any society, you have the haves and the have-nots, and you try to more or less focus on the have-nots. A lot of times, the better schooling opportunities or the different exposures, because persons would have come from means they already have that exposure to it. And what I try to, more or less push is to how can we make, the scales balance of sorts.
Okay, in your opinion, as an IT specialist, transferred or, as in moved to youth development, the COVID-19 pandemic, would you say that young persons were able to adapt faster to the technology in Antigua, or was it easy across the board, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there wasn't a real challenge for younger persons. The limitation came in financially. Lots of persons, although you may think, do not have internet at home, or if they do have internet on their mobile phones, it would not be enough to have a 4-hour session, Google Classroom session with their teachers. After half an hour or so, the credit is done or the internet is run out. So parents sometimes didn't have internet at home, but they have a plan on their phone, but the plan can only suffice. So if you're going to have virtual classes for the next month or so, you have 3 or 4 kids, you need to have plans on all of their phones, etc., etc. There was also limitation in terms of devices. A mobile phone or tablet, can work, in some instances just for quick communication, but to have a full-on classroom, it's advised to have a laptop or a desktop set up, and having multiple children at home and so on, was quite a challenge. You heard coming out a lot of persons were buying up laptops like crazy. On the global market, there was a shortage actually for computers. Even at my workplace, we were ordering computers and they were backlog for months because globally persons had to move to a digital space. And although you may have a computer at home, it may be 1 or 2 with a household of 4 or 5, because sometimes parents themselves may have had to work digitally or in a remote space, and then have to share the infrastructure with the children, or maybe the child or whomever, or their spouse. And it created a unique situation where sometimes person would have to forfeit this time, being able to work or to do a classroom here or there just to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is also a problem here, accessing the mediums needed to use the technology. So now, as we have moved past the pandemic, is there an increase in IT teaching tools now, or has Antigua reverted back to what was the modes before? In your have they kept some of it?
Not much. In some instances, I guess teachers, administrators would use that virtual setup. However, for some meetings and so on, but the classrooms, of course, are all in persons. And like Ms. Jack would have said earlier, that you learn better that way. Virtual engagements have their place. You may want to have a quick power meeting for 20 minutes or half an hour or so. For extended periods, especially with younger persons, you're not going to capture the attention for the next 2 hours or 3 hours, any real classroom session. Even for meetings as well, to a virtual setup is not best. As a matter of fact, if I prefer to have training done, it's normally in person, first thing in the morning when you're fresh. After in the afternoon, that's it. You lose people after that.
Okay, but I mean, and like your experience, I mean, your experiences are very interesting and I think important coming out of the pandemic because you are currently working in youth development and you have an IT background, and the pandemic truly brought out the technological person in all of us. So during your youth development work, is there any aspect of IT that you have to pull on often?
So a point of clarity first. So I still work in IT. I'm an
Oh, you
HR,
still work?
yes, systems
Okay.
administrator, but of course I wear multiple hats.
Yes, you do. Yes.
I kind of do several different things at the same time.
So
And
you walk around of all of them.
yeah,
Yes.
so it kind of gives you, this kind of view into different worlds from one perspective. So you can see what's happening here from this perspective and what's happening there from this perspective, and of course where they
Yeah.
intersect.
It's a
So
really good marry. Yeah.
yeah,
What's
so
that?
and sorry, yeah,
Uh-huh.
so and then the other challenge, of course, is the learned versus the unlearned, because a lot of persons, even in the workplace and so on, like I said earlier, they're familiar with performing a specific task on a computer, but may not be very versed with manipulating the computer environment on a whole. And when they're away, from that support environment, from the workplace, we can call it IT person or whatever have you, and they're on their own, then you see a lot of challenges and so on where persons can't function. And so then you'd have to try to streamline a bit of, up training in quick time for persons to get really up to speed. And, these are things you'd push over a period of time, but persons, of course, sometimes are resistant to change. They're accustomed to doing things the old time way with paper and so on. And I
How
mean,
do we deal with that? How do you deal with that? People
it's a
that
mind it's a
refuse.
mindset, and I think after a while people will realize they're going to get left behind, and at that
Yeah.
point that's when they kind of try to pick things up. I can remember several years ago we tried to push like virtual meetings, especially if you're going to have to commute, for persons to meet. It's not going to be a very long meeting. Hey, we can do a virtual meeting for this for a
Mm-hmm.
half an hour or so, maybe an hour or so. um, and persons didn't want to have to, oh, how do I set up this speaker or this headset or whatever, and it's too much. And then COVID came along, and then they realized after doing it the first few times, well, and hey, I can have meetings all the time virtually, and then became too much now because they figured now, hey, here's this tool I can use for all my meetings. I'm going to send you an invite every couple of hours, or like, hey, it's overkill.
I think that's good. And it's just to be responsible with the technology, with the
Yes,
new toy now. So maybe that
exactly.
is what we all have to learn coming out of the pandemic, that, we can do virtual meetings, if it's quick, something that is not too long, but if it's a general meetup, it's still important. We still need face to face. So coming out of that, was there an uptake in embracing the digitized services because of COVID? Speaking from your platform.
For a lot of older persons, yes, they got
Oh, older
heavily.
persons.
Yes. Again, because the young persons were already on their phones anyway. That's their life. They grew up, in that technology.
Uh,
But then for the older persons, they've now found new life in their mobile phone. It's like a whole new world they've found. Even going to Facebook for them was just like magic. Like, what? I didn't know I could see all this content in here. And sometimes they try to tag you and share stuff with you that is, sometimes not of the most interest, but for them it's a
mhm.
whole new world, but it existed there a long time ago, but it just took for something like that to push them to that point.
Okay. So I want to wrap up by asking you about your work routine. Have you changed anything? Have you leaned more towards technology or less towards technology coming out of the COVID pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic?
To be honest, my routine would still be the same, because again, in technology, your job kind of revolves around that specifically. And even if you're working remotely or in office, unless you have to do something physically, grab some files here, whatever, the work is kind of the same,
Mm-hmm.
wherever you are. So the change for me, has not been significant at all.
Right,
It's,
right,
it's,
right.
it's been that way for a while.
Okay. Okay, so I know I said that was my last question, but someone on Facebook just popped up one, and they are asking if youths are seriously taking advantage of the opportunities being made available.
Some are. The problem is some persons have not gotten the exposure as yet to see what happens if they do not, monopolize on the opportunities that they're presented with right now. The problem is, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, they're gonna have that aha moment. If I took the chance back then to, to learn this or to learn that, I let this opportunity pass me by, and it's gonna cost me this much right now to kind of catch up. And they're kind of feeling left behind, because of their peers or moving ahead in the, in the careers or whatever have you. And at the time, they didn't think it was, fun or cool to do.
Okay. And do these people, do young persons think that their voices are being heard? What's your opinion on that?
Yes and no. The problem
Okay.
here's the problem with this now.
Uh-huh.
Young person's voices are being heard, but sometimes it's how they put forward their message, the forms in which they put it forward, and how they articulate it. So sometimes people think by going on social media and ranting is going to fix an issue. There are different channels.
Good entertainment. But
and entertainment as well too. But there are correct channels in which you can actually put forward an issue, and if you have enough support, then of course you will get the attention that it needs. And so if you're going to go on Facebook and you're going to curse out somebody or the other, when there are ways you can actually go to a particular office and speak to whomever, and if you go in numbers and say, well, hey, we are having this issue, I speak for 50 people, and then those 50 persons can say, well, these are the persons that I represent, having the same issue, whatever have you. You document it, you can even sign a petition, right? Or even then go to social media, of course, with this list of persons. If, of course, you do not get through going through the correct channels and so on, you can go to social media and then, of course, try to effect some change that way. That's the social activism part of it. But again, because of how we tend to, I guess, look at social media as a way to just rant or to cancel or whatever, as a quick way of getting things done, then it's kind of becoming ineffective because people learn to ignore you.
Yeah,
and that's a bad thing.
Yes.
When somebody learns to ignore you, it becomes a very bad thing, because if I learn to ignore you, then your voice then becomes small and small until I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, the approach really matters. If you truly want to make change, the approach really, really matters.
Very important.
Yeah, but Lyle, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule, which I know very busy, to to join us tonight. The information that you gave us was really insightful, right?
All right. Thank you as well for having me.
Okay, all the best. So to end tonight's show, I would like to thank our sponsors again, Caribbean Insights, for the work that they have been doing to share topical information around the Caribbean. LRT Media and Business Solutions for all your media consulting and business support for this show, and also AD Romeo and Associates Consultancy, fostering sustainable development through innovative services worldwide. I also want to thank our speakers tonight, Prisca, Kendell, and Lyle. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join us. Do join us again next week, Thursday at 5 for episode 4 on the Caribbean Insights Facebook page, where we will be discussing Caribbean festivals in 2023. I am your host, Avanel Romeo, signing off for tonight. See you next time.